Been saying this for years. I don't care about the bottom 12 teams in the NBA. They're crap, and they always have been. Any sport doesn't have to air a certain number of games from lousy teams. Nobody says in the NFL, you got to air the Browns every week. No, you don't. NBC never has to air the Browns. CBS never has to air the Browns on their national game. In the NBA, if you got 6 to 7 good teams at the top that are viable, it's a great league. When Michael was running this thing in the 90s, there was about 6 good teams: Orlando, Seattle, Portland, Indiana, Jordan, Knicks, and just a bunch of crap. Nobody ever aired the crap. So the latest games on Christmas: Bucks, Knicks, Thunder, Rockets, Sixers, Celtics, Lakers, Warriors, Blazers, Jazz. All interesting, all captivating, except the Knicks. So of the 10 teams you'll see, 9 I'm interested in. And who knows, in a year, maybe the Knicks have Jimmy Butler. They're more interesting. But I was also listening this morning to it's called Sirius XM Radio. I don't know if you kids have heard about it. It's this new satellite radio thing, Sirius XM. So I'm listening to it, and they're talking about on Sirius today, they're going to have on their sports channel the NBA All-Time Fantasy 5 draft. And it was really funny because I'm sitting there thinking about the NBA. Analytics are everywhere in sports: hockey, soccer, basketball, football, baseball. In football, the same thing that mattered 30 years ago matters today: head coach, quarterback, offensive line. If those are good, you win. The Steelers did it in 75. The Niners did in the 80s and 90s. Then Jimmy Johnson and the Cowboys did. And now the New England Patriots. Coach, quarterback, and the quarterback always has a good guy, good lineman up front. But in basketball, the game has changed due to analytics. You can't be a center. If you're a big guy in the NBA, you can't even have your back to the basket. You have to face the basket now. It's not about rebounding. You can be an average rebounding team, LeBron, D. Wade, and Bosh were, and dominate the league. It's about possessions. You can't shoot a mid-range jumper anymore. There's no value in it. There's no value in 2 points. And so I was sitting there thinking, I've always believed my all-time starting 5 would be Magic, Michael, LeBron, Larry, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And I always felt like Larry was the only real pure shooter on that team. Kareem's obviously the most unstoppable 2-point shot, and Michael Jordan's the greatest mid-range shooter of all time. Magic himself, not much of a shooter, but he could score at the rim. But think of how much analytics have changed. If you told me today, that's my all-time starting 5 without qualifications. But in analytics now, if I had to start a team, my all-time starting 5, with analytics, Magic Johnson doesn't start, and neither does Michael. Michael was a lousy 3-point shooter. Colin, it would be different. No, it wouldn't be. 5 times Michael Jordan shot under 20% on threes. He was a disastrous 3-point shooter. You don't go from disastrous, ask Russell Westbrook, to great. Michael Jordan was a ball hog. Michael Jordan wouldn't pass, therefore not allowing Larry Bird, LeBron, Steph Curry to get the shots. Michael Jordan, you want to call him the greatest of all time. Larry Bird and LeBron's skill sets translate. Kobe Bryant was always a better long-range shooter than Michael. Steph Curry is not Magic, the player, overall. But in the new era, Steph Curry's a far more valuable player than Magic Johnson. And I bet Magic Johnson would admit that. Now, Michael would never admit anybody was better. But you forget about Michael Jordan. His career 3-point shooting was worse than Westbrook's. Westbrook's been in the league 10 years. He's trying to make it a better shot. Some guys are not natural 3-point shooters. Michael never was. He had 2 good years shooting a 3. That's when the NBA moved the shot in. They moved it back. He was awful again. Many suggested Michael's hands were too big. Like centers at the free throw line, Michael could not shoot a 3, 5 times under 20%. And you think it's absurd to say that. But sports change. I didn't care about mobility for my quarterback 20 years ago. I think it helps now. I think it does help now that if my quarterback can move a little bit because the spacing's different in the NFL. In Major League Baseball, I was never a huge fan of power hitters, but there was real value to Reggie Jackson. Now, Bryce Harper hits 220. I'm not paying him $400 million, even if he's putting butts in seats. So it's interesting as they release the NBA schedule for Christmas. It sounds absurd to say that Kobe would start over Michael on the all-time team. But Kobe was always 85% of Michael. But when compared to the game today, what matters, a three-point shot, Kobe's significantly more accurate than Michael. Larry Bird and LeBron are the only two, 20 years ago and today, their skill set translates perfectly. And it really states how great LeBron is. LeBron James entered the league as a poor three-point shooter and now is an incredibly effective three-point shooter. The three-point shot was always available in Michael's career, and he wanted to get better. From the first day to the last, he was terrible. Like Westbrook, it's just never going to be part of his arsenal. And you know Michael worked at it because Michael worked at everything. Michael worked at baseball. Michael worked at everything. He was that competitive. Still couldn't shoot it. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.